Today we're going to talk about the Dana Life Safety Rules. The below training are the Dana Life Safety Rules. You most likely have been following these rules for a long time. However, it's good to review the Dana standards. Please take time to review this process. After the Life Safety Rules, you will see that we developed an electronic TSAC. That stands for a Task Safety Assessment Card. This will make the process of creating that TSAC very easy once you have that personal tablet or iPad. Thanks, and please work safe. What is a JSRA and a TSAC, and really how does that affect me or what I do? Let me first explain the reason for the TSAC and the JSRAs, and then I will review with you the life safety rules. And by the way, the JSRA is a job safety risk analysis. The job safety risk analysis are better fit for the production people, such as changeovers, setting up their machines and things like that. The TSAC, which is a task safety assessment card, are for those non-routine tasks, such as corrective maintenance. Preventative maintenance are those unusual things that you have to do. The TSAC process actually gives the tradesperson the power to stop the job. If you don't feel it's safe, you need to stop. Call for help and let's work through it. Think through that task to be accomplished, identify those tasks and subtasks, observe the work area and their surroundings, then identify what else is going on that could impact your task and how your work could be affecting others. This slide here is no more than just comparing the JSRA process to the TSAC process. Both pros and cons for each one of those. However, I would like you to focus as trade people on the TSAC. Again, the most important thing is that you have the stop work authority. If you don't feel that job is safe, it's time to stop, pull in the help, or take the time to make it safe. That's your call. You're tradespeople, and we understand that you've been trained for these things. It also forces us to identify those risks and hazards. Makes the employee think before you act. It's immediate. It's a visual process right on the floor because you're there. Would be used for every corrective maintenance and preventative maintenance. It's easy to audit. It's a good coaching tool on the spot. Employee involvement, and it increases accountability and would live on forever. It changes all the time, so does your TSAC. Some of the cons is probably easy to miss a hazard sometimes as you're trying to get a machine running or a piece of equipment repaired, so be careful. And for some tasks, you might think that we could develop a JSRA and that this TSAC really isn't important. However, working safe is very important, and we want to make sure you get home at the end of the day. The TSAC is for non-routine tasks. For example, all corrective maintenance work orders that do not have a documented procedure or a JSRA should have a TSAC. Many times it's unscheduled or unplanned. Many times it's an emergency, and I'm sure that's about 90% of your work, just like it is in the other plants. That's why we need a TSAC. Preventative maintenance items, even changing out filters, things like that, you have to think about the safe way to do it. Those kind of jobs that might require you to stand on a ladder or get up high somewhere, think about that, create a TSAC. And then many of those jobs that are done out infrequently or outside of the normal work week, those type jobs really need a TSAC. Okay, let's get into the 6 life safety rules. And those are energy isolation, such as lockout, tagout, machine guarding, working at heights over 4 feet, fork truck and mobile equipment safety, electrical safe work practices, and those confined spaces. Energy isolation, lockout, tagout. Any isolation of energy systems, mechanical and electrical processes, hydraulic, gravity, and others must ensure that there's an approved method in writing to isolate the equipment, discharge that stored energy, verify zero energy state, and then reinstate the equipment. Isolation points are locked and tagged and verified. Verification is a test conducted before any related work begins to confirm that isolation is effective and zero energy state has been achieved. For those mechanical power presses, observe no hands in dies policy. If hands are put between the dies, then lock out, tag out, and then used for a safety block. So basically, put a block in between those. There's a process to communicate the status of isolation between the shifts and different work groups. The isolation is periodically monitored for effectiveness. Working at heights, 100% fall protection. Working at heights without temporary or permanent protection is prohibited. Any work that is greater than 1.2 meters or 4 feet from a lower level must include fall protection measures, such as a temporary or permanent guardrail system or an engineered platform, personal fall arrest system, which is required with an approved anchor point. The 1.2 meter or 4 foot rule is a policy, and we may be more stringent than local regulations. If the personal fall arrest system must ensure 100% tie-off that is achieved at all times. Personal fall arrest equipment must be inspected prior to each use. The risk of dropping objects on personnel or equipment below must be assessed, and the plans implemented to maintain these risks established. Do not work within 10 foot or 3 meters of the leading edge of a roof without the properly anchored fall arrest system. An acceptable solution is travel restraint. A safety watch is not acceptable. Do not work in a man lift or JLG or aerial lift or scissors lift without wearing full body harness and a lanyard, fall limiter, and properly anchored to the approved anchor points inside that platform. Relying on the guardrails for the lifts is not acceptable. Do not climb on top of machines or equipment at heights greater than 1.2 meters or 4 feet or higher above the ground without properly anchored personnel fall arrest system or guardrail system. Do not work next to a pit or hole or a wall opening with a fall hazard of greater than 1.2 meters or 4 feet or higher above the ground without properly anchored personal fall arrest system or guardrail system. Industrial power vehicles. Do not operate an industrial power vehicle, fork truck, or any other mobile equipment unless you've been trained and authorized. Do not board semi-trailers or containers without first verifying the dock lock is engaged, and in North America that is required. Wheel chocks are in place, more than one wheel. If the tractor is absent, a jack stand is required before boarding with an industrial powered vehicle, and the floor condition of the trailer must be checked. No distracted driving, no talking or texting on the phone or other mobile communication devices and driving. No use of earbuds or any other personal listening devices. Do not deliberately operate a fork truck and a mobile equipment in an unsafe capacity. Yes, this includes horseplay or being under the influence of drugs and alcohol, or injuring or potentially injuring another person as a result of that operator's actions. Do not stack containers on an incline. Do not drive forward on a fork truck with the view obstructed by the load. Must have the load trailing if the view is obstructed. Do not pick up containers or other objects which exceed the weight capacity of the fork truck or mobile equipment. Do not allow a rider on an industrial powered vehicle not designed for riders. Electrical work practices. Do not open electrical panels unless you are a qualified electrical worker trained in electrical safe work practices. Opening an electrical panel does not include opening the door to access breakers for light switches, for example, provided that there are no exposed energized parts. Do not conduct energized electrical work without an energized electrical work permit. Working energized means making connections with wires or components that are electrically energized, as well as plugging and unplugging into an energized bus. Working on does not include diagnostic testing with a meter. For shock protection, failing to wear your rubber insulating gloves with leather overgloves within the restricted approach area of 12 inches or 0.3 meters, with the panel door open and the panel on and energized. Rubber gloves category must be consistent with the available voltage. For arc protection, failing to use all required arc flash equipment, clothing, face shield, etc., must be consistent with the available incident energy. Anytime an electrical panel door is open, failing to establish the limited approach area within a barricade of a minimum of 42 inches, 1.2 meters, this barricade keeps unqualified persons away. Confined spaces. Do not enter any confined spaces unless you are trained and authorized. Do not enter any permit required confined space without an entry permit. Do not enter a permit required confined space without first using an air monitor prior to entry. If so assigned, do not leave your post as an attendant during a permit required confined space entry.